Hey, Florida, it's Karri Lindsey with Brix Realty. I just want to go over the July monthly market report. Again, I've had a lot of questions asked of me to kind of do something like this, to kind of give you a rundown of what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what economists are saying. And so I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk you through some of the biggest topics in the shifting market. We are certainly seeing a market right now that is very different from the last 2 years. So let's hop in here, and I'm going to start with the topic of the economic slowdown. This is a topic that you have seen in the news, on the radio, from consumers, basically everywhere. And I want to talk about it in the talks of a recession and how that is going to impact the real estate market. So basically, I'm going to start from something that a survey that the Washington Post did, and they basically say from a survey that they have done, recession fear surges among CEOs, a new survey suggests. They go on to say that 3/4 of global CEOs say that we are in a recession or will be in a recession in the next 12 to 18 months. And so what does recession mean? So there's a widely held definition that a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, gross domestic product. And we definitely had negative GDP in the first quarter. We just wrapped up the second quarter ending on June 30th, and it looks like we're going to be in negative GDP for the second quarter as well. So by definition, we would be in a recession here in the United States. Now, that hasn't formally been announced. And it may not be for quite some time. And typically, a lot of times, recessions are determined by looking in the rear view mirror. So like once we've moved forward, we look back and we're like, wow, we had a recession. But there are some things that we know is happening. The economy is slowing down. And so it is likely that we are either starting a recession or will be in one probably, for sure by the end of the year. So throughout history, during a recessionary period, what happens? Interest rates typically go up during the beginning of a recession. But in order to come out of that recession, interest rates historically have gone down. They are lowered to stimulate the economy to move forward. So historically, we've seen repeated uptick in interest rates followed by lower interest rates. So that's something to keep in mind. We're seeing that right now. Interest rates are up. They're almost double what they were in November of 2021. We were right around 2.93%. Now we're 5.75. It keeps fluctuating. I think the highest we did hit 6%. Now I think last week they lowered interest rates, and I think we're at 5.3. So not quite double, but definitely a lot higher than what we have experienced. So if we go back and we look at prior recessionary periods, going all the way back to the 1980s, in each one of those recessions that we've had in this country, what has happened to the mortgage interest rate? Well, one thing that every single one of those recessions has in common is that in each and every instance, mortgage rates fell. Now, that's not to say, since we can't predict the future, that in every recession going forward, that is what is going to happen. But history a lot of times does replay in the future. And so I think that it's safe to say that, since interest rates have lowered in every single prior recession towards the end of that recession, we could probably say that it will do the same this time. So what's the Fed doing right now? The Fed right now is trying to tame inflation. And one way that they try to tame inflation is by raising the Fed funds rate. The Fed funds rate is the bank rate that banks take out money and charge each other, okay? And so that the mortgage interest rates and basically all of our interest rates, credit card rates, our government interest payments that we pay on our debt, and car rates, all the interest rates are really tied to the Fed funds rate, to simplify it a lot, I guess, to simplify it a lot. So the Fed funds rate drives what our mortgage interest rates are, and then also what other interest rates we pay, credit card debt, interest, car loans, things like that. They're all tied back to that Fed funds rate. So when they're raising interest rates, they're doing that to slow down the economy. They want to try to engineer a soft landing so that we don't go into a recession. But what if we do? What happens then? So the impact on the housing market in this country is tremendous if we go into a recession, because housing has always been what leads us out of a recession. And so the U.S. economy will not recover until housing leads the way out. That's always the way that it's been. So I think it's very important right now to remember that a recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. Again, going all the way back to the early 80s, what happened to the housing prices back then? Well, 4 out of the 6 recessions that we've had, homes appreciated. 2 times they fell, one in the early 1990s, I believe 1991, and then the second time obviously in 2008, which was, I think there was a decrease of housing prices back then of like 19%. So 2008 was, obviously a pretty bad year. However, that doesn't mean that this time that our housing prices are not going to continue to appreciate. In fact, as we talk later on in this video, you'll see that that is not what economists are predicting will happen. So now that we've talked about rates, and we know that typically in a recession, as we've experienced in our history, they do go up at the very beginning, but then towards the end of the recession, the rates come down. So if you guys have seen the little tagline that a lot of lenders are doing right now, the taglines that lenders are saying is date the rate and marry the mortgage. And so what do they mean by that? Well, what they mean is right now interest rates are high. So if you want to buy a home, go ahead and buy a home. Your mortgage, it does help fight inflation to have a stable mortgage payment. You're not going to be worried about your rent increasing in a year. Your mortgage payment is your mortgage payment. And so that does help people, do balanced budgets and be able to budget, their expenses accordingly. But if interest rates go down, you're not tied to that interest rate. You can refinance. And so if you refinance, then you're going to take advantage of a lower rate in the future, and your payment will even be lower. So that's the whole theory behind date the rate and marry the mortgage, in case you guys are wondering. Okay, so we've talked about rates, we've talked about housing values, and so now what about inventory? Okay, so here are a few key trends that economists are talking about in the market, things that I've actually seen myself here in our Florida market, and what is impacting inventory? Well, so what have we seen on offers received? So on offers received, we are seeing not as many multiple offers, that the number of offers, multiple offers have been in decline. So nationwide, it peaked around 5.5 offers per home in April. And now across the country, it's down to 4.2. So what this means is the number of buyers, most likely because of the interest rates, have backed out of the market. Whether it's because they just don't want to have a high house payment, or financially they just can't afford it. Okay, so the rising mortgage rate environment is really starting to soften our demand. So if you think about 4.2 offers per home, across the country, that's still far above what we were, pre-pandemic, right? So we're definitely still in a competitive market, and but the good news is that we're seeing some moderation. We're also seeing offers over asking price declining. So a month ago, nationwide, 61% of all of the offers received across the country were over asking price. That number has now been moderated, and we're about 55% of all of those offers. So things are leveling out, I guess, is what I would like to say. And that's actually a really good thing. We were never on a path in this country to sustain 20 to 50% appreciation in home prices like we have the last 2 years. We couldn't sustain that as a country. So if we're really being honest with ourselves, what's happened over the last 2 years, and even the interest rates over the last 5 to 7 years, were artificially low. And, a really good interest rate is probably between 4 and 6%. And you see that going back, and looking at history. But we all get used to what we get used to. And so anytime you have interest rates that have been really low and then you try to take them back up to a normal level, panic obviously happens. But so again, I got off on a tangent there. But so again, we're seeing offers declining. We're seeing offers over asking declining. We're seeing multiple offers, not as many. I can personally attest to that here. And so we are seeing a softening of the market. It's not a huge decline, but it's definitely putting us in the right direction to make it more affordable for buyers. We also have a slower pace of sales. So inventory is on the rise right now. And so at the end of the day, that means that there's more options for buyers that are coming to the market. So there's a quote from Mark Fleming who says there's been a pickup in inventory that we've seen recently, and it's not in new listings, but rather a slowdown in the pace of sales. And so remember that month supply of inventory measures sales relative to the pace of sales. So right now we have the same inventory, but we have fewer sales. It still means more months of supply because it's taking longer to go through the inventory that we have. So we know that a month supply of inventory is increasing, which means that there are going to be more options for buyers out there when there's more inventory on the market. Are we anywhere near a balanced market? No, we're not. Balanced market means there's 6 months of inventory in our MLS, and we're certainly not there. I think here in Florida, we're still right around a month of inventory, regardless of what county, whether you're in Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, Escambia, or Bay County, or Walton County. I think we're still right around a month of inventory. So it's still a really competitive market, but things are slowing down, and you're not seeing homes fly off the market the first day or within the first hour of being listed and in, having 20 separate offers on the table for, one property. So it is stabilizing. That's how I would characterize it. We are stabilizing. So we have new monthly listing counts that are increasing at a faster pace than we did last year. And knowing that the pace of sales is slowing, what that tells us is that we are returning to more of a normal type of market, something like we had pre-pandemic, right, in 2018 and 2019. So with the new listings coming to market and the pace of sales slowing, what does that mean? What does that tell us? So it means that more options are going to be available. More active inventory is going to be on the market. Now, we still have far more buyers than we do sellers. And so that is continuing to put an upward pressure on prices. So while we will see prices, I think, stabilizing, are we going to see dramatic decreases in prices? No, probably not. But what I can tell you is in our market, I am seeing price reductions that I have not seen in a long time. I'm seeing a lot more open houses on the market that I have not seen in a long time. And that simply means that buyers are being more wary because it is the biggest financial decision of their life usually. And so they're really taking into consideration a lot of things. There's not that frenzy anymore that we've had in the past. And so again, there's going to be more options out there. And so what does that look like for the rest of the year? Like, we know that that's what we're talking about right now. Well, Realtor.com, they forecast the inventory across the country at the beginning of every year. And then they go back if they need to and they reforecast. So when 2022 began, they forecasted that there would be a 0.3% in inventory for 2022 over 2021. They recently, at the end of June, reforecasted. And now they're saying for the rest of the year that there's going to be a 15% increase in inventory. And a lot of that is largely to do with the softening of the market or the slower pace in sales. So, what does that mean? That means that we're going to have more inventory coming to the market. It means we should start to see a little less competition, fewer bidding wars, and a little less upward pressure. Prices are going to be maybe a little bit more realistic than what they have been in the past. And that tug of war between buyer and seller, or supply and demand, is going to lessen a little bit. Now, prices are still projected to increase, but just at a more moderate rate. And we're already starting to see that. I just mentioned I'm seeing more open houses. You didn't even have time to do an open house over the last 2 years because they sold usually within the first day or within the first couple days. And I'm already starting to see some price decreases. So prices are still competitive. They are ticking up, but at a slower, more moderate pace. Supply is still really low. And again, the law of supply and demand still dictates our market. So when supply is really low and you have a lot of demand, people can charge higher prices. And that is the same with the housing industry. All right, so the next topic that I kind of want to go over with everybody now that we've talked about pricing and we've talked about inventory and we've talked about rates. The last thing that I kind of want to talk about is, if you're a buyer that has stepped out of the market because of rates or because of frustration with dealing multiple offers or over asking price or appraisal gaps or all of that stuff, you may want to reconsider. There are going to be, I feel like, more options. Even in our market, I feel like there's going to be more options. Sellers have really tried to price aspirationally, I guess, is what I would say, at the highest point that they feel like they could get for their homes. And while that worked in the past, I don't think that, if they have a good listing agent that is, representing them, I think that trying to price aspirationally in this market is probably not going to work as well as it has in the past. So again, I think those prices will stabilize. So the question is, should I buy now? Does it make sense? That's the question I think that is even bigger than the interest rate question right now. Like, what are interest rates going to do? So the average mortgage payment, obviously has gone up significantly. Some, $200 to $400, depending on your price point and depending on what rate you were actually maybe locked in at before and then actually ended up, getting when you were ready to purchase. And your mortgage payment is the barrier to homeownership for many people. And so it causes people to pause. And we're certainly seeing that in this market. But more than that, buyers want to know that what they're purchasing is not going to be worth less in 6 months or 12 months down the road, right? Like, buyers want an appreciating asset. We all want an appreciating asset. You don't want, it's not like buying a car where, you buy a car, you drive it off the lot, and it's not worth what you just paid for it. You don't want that with houses. And there are a ton of negative headlines out there, pummeling our consumers about the housing market, saying declining property values, blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on and on. And certainly we are in a decelerating time right now. We are not going to see appreciation go forward like we have seen in the last 2 years, but that's a good thing, right? Remember earlier when I said, like, if we're really honest with ourselves, the people that are in this business, myself, financial analysts, lenders, we can't continue to see the appreciation that we've seen over the last 24 months. And so what's happening right now with the decelerating of home values is actually a really, really good thing. So let's be clear, decelerating home prices, so the fact that they're slowing down, does not mean depreciating home prices, right? There's a difference. A decelerating environment means there's not as much appreciation as what we have seen in the past. And again, we said that was a good thing. So we're in a time right now as this market shifts where there are a lot of people that, again, like I said, they price their homes aspirationally. And there's a lot of sellers right now that haven't adjusted to the market that we're in. Now, I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but when you've priced your home aspirationally and we're in a market that is shifting, a lot of those sellers are going to find themselves having to do price adjustments. if they want to sell. And that is what we're seeing. So the reality of it is what we've always said, what we always say, as good agents, is that a home that is overpriced to start with is not going to sell. And pricing right in today's market, or in any market, is critical. So you want to make sure that you've got a good agent, on your side that's going to give you the truth, not just take your listing just to get the commission, but to actually be honest with you and to let you know, in this type of a market, where is it good to price your home? So talking about homes, there's a survey out there called the Home Price Expection Survey. And this Home Price Expection Survey is basically made up of 100 economists, housing market experts that deal with the housing market across the country every day as their jobs. So they survey every quarter. And they have been asked, what do you see for appreciation for this year, and then the 4 years ahead? So basically a 5-year window. Sorry, there's a gnat flying around. So for 2022, they basically said 9.3% appreciation, and then 4.4% for 2023, 3% for 2024, and 4% for 2025. So let me repeat those because that was a lot of talking. For 2022, they're saying 9.3% appreciation on homes, 4% in 2023, 3% in 2024, and 4% in 2025. Okay, so again, not the 20, 30, 50% appreciation that we've had over the last couple years by any means. However, go to the bank and tell me where you can get 3% on a savings account or 4% on a CD. You can't. So the fact that we're doing 4% appreciation, which is typically a normal appreciation if you go back pre-pandemic. So anywhere from 2012 to 2019, right? 4% appreciation is about normal for homes. And to take it further, Dave Ramsey, which I don't know, I'm sure everybody's heard of Dave Ramsey. I have a lot of respect for him. In a recent video, he talks about the number of people that are in the market and why he feels like homes are not going to lose value. And he basically says that the root issue of what drives home prices is always supply and demand. And so I agree with them 100% on that. But interest rates do affect that, and that's true too. And so when interest rates go up, what happens? Fewer buyers. And that is exactly what we are seeing now. So the demand goes down, and thus prices soften. They're not going to be as crazy as they have been in the past, and that's a good thing. And again, that is exactly what we're seeing today across the nation and even here in Florida. So to kind of wrap up everything, experts don't believe that we are in a market crash or that we are in a bubble and, the cards are going to, all fall on the ground and everybody's going to freak out. And I don't feel like that either. I do feel like the market's going to adjust. I feel like it's going to continue to adjust. Certainly our nation and even here in Florida, we definitely have a housing shortage. With all of the people that are moving here to Florida on a daily basis, you might call it like somewhat of a state crisis. We just don't have enough homes for people. The other thing that is driving pressures on pricing is the amount of millennials that are reaching the age that are considering homeownership. So when you have the low inventory, and then you have a group, a large group of Americans that are looking to buy homes because now they're buying age, and they've hit that point, in their life and their career where they're ready to buy a home. That's keeping the pricing pressures up, and so that's where that appreciation is also, gonna come into play. But again, you want appreciation on your home. So even though it's not going to be as good as it's been over the last couple years, it's not going to fall out from underneath you. And I'll simply just end on this. I'm not suggesting that we are in a market that is not difficult. I know that it's difficult. I deal with it with buyers every day. And there's not going to be challenges. But I do believe that while the market will be difficult, it's certainly going to be better than the last couple of years. And I will say that it definitely will not be impossible. So If you are thinking of buying or selling, I would encourage you to reach out to me or to an agent that you trust and just get, you know, their thoughts on the market and their opinions, and then do your own research. Watch videos like this. There's a ton of videos out there from other agents, from lenders, from economists that give all sides of the spectrum to this issue, and really know your facts and data before you go and make a big financial decision. And at the end of the day, I'm here. If you have any questions and you want to reach out, you need more information, I would love to speak with you. My number is 913-638-7767, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope that this helped maybe just a little bit, give you some peace of mind that while the market's still going to be super competitive, it's definitely not something that we can handle. And at the end of the day, I believe interest rates will probably hover around probably 5% for probably a while. I feel like that's probably a really safe rate. So anyway, I hope this helped. If you have any questions, holler at me. Have a great day, guys. Bye.